Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're going to be looking at the market cycle ROI. We're going to break it down into several sub-cycles and just see where we currently are. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So this is the first cycle for Ethereum, the yellow line. And remember, it's not exactly the best comparison because it launched in Q3 of 2015. If it had been around earlier in the year, then the cycle bottom could have occurred sooner. But because it didn't launch until August, we can only basically take it from that local low from when it started completely trending up. So otherwise, this would trend out a couple hundred more days had it launched earlier in the year. But then again, if that had happened, the entire market cycle likely would have been different. So this is cycle one. This is cycle two. Okay, this is cycle two so far. Now, one of the things you note from cycle two is that the bull market didn't really start until here. This is when it started trending up, okay? And it was because of this long consolidation phase that you probably would have seen this over here had Ethereum actually launched closer to the cycle bottom, for Bitcoin, that is. Now, if we were to break this up, we like to break these up into sub-cycles, 1 and 2 to start with, you get something that looks like this. And you note they move up relatively quickly, and they both give a decent ROI. If you compare it with the current cycle, as measured from the bottom in December of 2020, it looks something like this. And I've included the little capitulation we've had here, even though it's possible that we'll look at this as the first major leg. Okay. Now, if we go look at this and say, let's suppose that instead of measuring it from here, let's actually measure it from the bottom, which is essentially what we're doing for Ethereum in the prior cycle. But in that situation, we didn't have a choice because that's when Ethereum launched. It just happened to launch at like the perfect time. Or maybe maybe the launch of Ethereum, that was what created more interest. But if you take it from 2020, March of 2020, you get something that looks like this. And if you compare it with the prior two moves, we made a video a few weeks ago saying that there's a good chance Ethereum's going to get close, approximately $10,000 this cycle, but it probably would not do it on this leg. And the reason why is because if you break it, and actually before I get to the reason, it's funny because if you actually compare both cycles, the current one is actually ahead of schedule with it being shifted to March of 2020. We're actually ahead of schedule compared to where we were before. Now, just like Bitcoin, I think that Ethereum will eventually fall behind and put in a market cycle ROI that is less than the prior cycle. Because the last cycle, anyone who put $1,000 into Ethereum in October of 2015 had basically made a few $1 million by January of 2018. So I don't think we're going to see quite as big of an ROI, but maybe we could do something close to around 100x by the end of the cycle. Okay. Now, if you break this one up into 3 sub-cycles, so 1, 2, and 3, you get something that looks like this. And it was this chart a few weeks ago that I said is the reason that this rally will probably have us fall short of 10K, and that it's going to be a future rally that will probably actually get us there. And so far, this is that rally. We moved up fairly significantly over the last several hundred days, and we finally had a pretty sharp drop. We don't know decisively that this run is over. It could very quickly pick back up. But I'm guessing there's a decent probability, as we said, that going into the summertime, we may have a lull in the market, a consolidation phase, if you will, at least going into the summer, during the summer, and maybe even longer than that. But there's a good chance we'll have a consolidation phase. And so maybe in the future, whenever the consolidation phase is over, wherever Ethereum sort of settles, we'll see another run where it does maybe like a 10x or something. Maybe an 8x, or if you look at this one here, this will put in about a 9x. So imagine Ethereum, I don't know exactly where the bottom's going to be, but you can imagine wherever the bottom is, maybe we do another 8 to 10x from there to put in the market cycle top. Now, if you go back and look let me see if I can find it. If you go back and look at this chart, you'll see that in order to if we were to go the same length of time as the last cycle, then it would put us out another about 400 days or so. So more than a year. It put us out more than a year. And there's a good chance we could go even longer than that. I think Ethereum's only going to grow in terms of its ecosystem, and there's going to be a lot of money pouring in as hopefully institutions see a cheaper price and are more attracted to it rather than the FOMO at over $4,000. But regardless, we've talked about, we've shown the charts before that show that the summertime, June, July, and August, a lot of times the ROI averages out to be 1. That doesn't mean that, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But on average, most years, the ROI of buying, the 90-day ROI, I should say the 90-day ROI of buying Ethereum in June, July, and August tends to be approximately 1. And so that was the reasoning of discussing a potential lull in the market. So we look at this sort of sub-cycle ROI, and we contend that could be the first leg in our journey, and it came in just short of the other 2 sub-cycles we saw, just short of it. So the next one, whenever we start the next one, which I would contend is likely not going to happen immediately, there's probably going to be some consolidation phase again for at least the summer, and maybe beyond that before we can make that next leg up. Then from that point, we'll measure from whatever that new bottom is, and we'll see what kind of push can Ethereum make in order to put in a market cycle top. Again, this is not necessarily going to happen like that. We could always put in smaller sub-cycles, maybe like we do a 5x and then another 3x or something. We're just going based off what we saw from the last cycle. We had, here's 20, 30, 40, 50. So this was about a 60x, this was about a 50x, and then we had about a 9x. So far, this one was about a 40x. So again, my guess, and if you look at the last cycle, you can see that it moved up for a while, and then we had a long consolidation phase, and then it moved up for a while, and we had about a half of a year consolidation phase. So I want people to be prepared for the idea that we could have a consolidation phase, and hopefully those charts I showed a week or so ago of a potential lull in the summer helps us understand why that could be, and the idea that buying Ethereum in the summer in terms of the 90-day ROI tends to give you an ROI of 90 days, over those 90 days of approximately 1. So I wouldn't necessarily expect any crazy gains, but you never really know, which is why I still hold, some Ethereum. Regardless, right now, everything's obviously dependent on Bitcoin. Everything's dependent on Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin continues dumping, there's a high probability that the Ether Bitcoin valuation will continue dumping. We know that when Bitcoin's below its 20-week SMA, the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation does not tend to perform so well. So we need to keep that in mind. But what I would say is that during this cycle, we always said that there's going to be, there's probably going to be a long consolidation phase similar to the prior cycles. We've contended that for a while. And if we get that, if we don't immediately continue moving up, if we get that long consolidation phase, I would remind you that it's probably not the worst idea in the world to see that as an opportunity, not necessarily as something that has to be indicative of a market cycle top. Okay. Now, again, I would agree that we could go down more. Even last cycle, we saw Ethereum drop 2 separate times, approximately 60 to 70%, 2 separate times. I think one of the ones was from this point here down to here, and then from up here down to here. I think those were about 60 to 70% drops. Despite the fact that Ethereum dropped 60% or 70%, it was still just a bump in the road on the route to a much longer and grander cycle. So we never said the market cycle was going to be easy. We know there's the downside risk. We talk about the downside risk all the time. We'll continue to talk about it as we go forward, and hopefully we can put in some type of consolidation phase over at least the next few months so that we can gear up for a run later on. And again, as I've said before, and I will maintain, I do not think that the market cycle top will happen in 2021. Okay, I think it's going to be extended beyond that. So be patient, okay? Learn about crypto, learn about Ethereum, and hopefully we come out the other side in the not so distant future. My guess again is we're going to have a major move, another leg up, probably in 2022, and it could start before then, right? It could start in 2021. It could even start in 2021. But I think it will, the market cycle peak will probably be no sooner than 2022, and it could be pushed beyond that. So if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to check out the sale on the premium list. You can find a link to that in the description below as well if you want to know how I'm navigating the markets. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.